See, nothing about reality at all. So they just believe it's just something that they can think about, but I don't think that it will lead to the understanding of the truth of Dhamma right now.
Hello, it's there. I think there are different examples in the text. I think I seem to remember a bhikkhu who saw a leaf falling from the tree, and that was a condition for him to have a degree of samvega. And many times we could say the Buddha's reminders to monks about impermanence, about the way realities are, is kind of touching on, literally means, samvega means urgency. It means, literally the English word velocity from vega means quickly. So it stimulates a sense of urgency. And Ajarn would always remind us that ideally it's good to be urgent. The Buddha talked about, imagine your hair is on fire. So we should be urgent in that respect also, so that can condition the sense of samvega, or this, there's a man following behind us and he's got a sword, and when we are not vigilant, he will cut our heads off. Mm-hmm. So the Buddha, in many and varied ways, reminded people, the bhikkhus especially, to be, even his last injunction, appamadena sampadeta, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara, all sankharas are perishing. He's reminding people of the ever-dissolving world of realities, and that to take that opportunity, not with attachment, but with wisdom, not with akusala, to have understanding.
And Ajarn, the wisdom would be the wisdom that knows about what appears now.
Because you see that we don't just want people to be good, but to understand the ways of Buddha.
So the leaf, when the bhikkhu saw the leaf falling off a tree, that was a condition for him to understand that the citta now is rising and falling.
Because of his accumulation. Otherwise, it means nothing.
Well, there's the bhikkhu who rubbed a rag and became an arahant.
Yeah.
I could rub a rag all day, it wouldn't do much for me.
No.
And when there's no consideration, one just take it as it's something to do, but it's not like that. Yeah.
Self has to die. That's not good.
And even last week or the week before, we were talking about Magha Puja, which was that month when the Buddha gave the Awada Patimokkha to do good, to avoid evil, and to purify the mind. Well, that is a type of reminder also, because everything is dependent. It's not like you do good and avoid evil. It's about purifying. Actually, the word purifying is even not so good, because the word pariyodapanam means literally round, thoroughly, and then diving into. So it's a sense of really, truly eradicating the latent tendencies from the citta. So even though we say, actually it's the other way around, sabapapassa, to avoid evil, to do good, and purify the mind, that's really an injunction to truly understand. And then, of course, when there is understanding, there will be the avoidance of evil, there will be the doing of good, and there will be the purification of the mind.
That brings up another question that I had then. On DSG there was something about Dhamma nu Dhamma pati pati.
Yes.
What does that exactly mean? People are trying to understand that phrase. What does it mean?
One has to remember that the words of the Buddha is not just for reading, but to understanding.
Right.
The truth of whatever appears now. Because you see that anyone who doesn't have the understanding of reality of Dhamma, they read without understanding. They read like, it's me, Buddha taught us to be so and so, such and such. But actually, he taught those who had accumulation to understand his words as it is, like anatta. See, people just get that uncontrollable. It has to be conditioned to be like this, but actually, no one there. That's the meaning of anatta or sunyata.
You mean it's not about uncontrollability so much, or that's one
Together.
aspect? Together, yeah.
Yeah. When it's not self, there's no self who can control.
Right.
And just on that point there about Dhamma, I have to be careful here in a way, and I'd like to speak to Kunjoy afterwards because I've seen that translation which was spoken about and I don't agree with it. To me, it's not a translation. It's and I wanted to speak more about this when I send a post. It's more of an interpretation, the one that I read. Dhamma patipatti, as I understand it and as correctly translated in my opinion, would be walking in accordance with Dhamma as Dhamma is, as per the three preceding factors. There was that portion in there by a person who said it related to object. Now, I don't believe that's true. And to translate patti as object, that is nothing to do with the Pali. But anyway, I'll leave that for the time being because I want to speak and follow up on that. And I think it's really important when it comes to translations that we don't actually try to make the Dhamma fit, because that's what seems to have happened when I read that. It was translating patti as object. Now, in the Pali, and I have access to about 4 dictionaries, that word patti does not translate as object. We don't need to translate because Dhamma is strong enough in itself without actually using that word. We don't have to kind of, as it seemed to me, to make the Dhamma fit a certain perspective.
Any comments, Ajarn, on that?
Because you see, if there is no understanding of Dhamma as it is, it's not the understanding of Dhamma, no Dhamma patipatti. Because it's not you, it's not I, it's Dhamma, which patipatti. And if you think of reach, to attain, to get, like now, we talk about seeing as not self, but there is no understanding of seeing yet, to know that it's not me, it's not self, and so Dhamma patipatti, it's not me who patipatti, and patipatti is not just to do, it's not the Thai use as doing something, but it means to reach the truth of the seeing, or to reach the truth of whatever appears as it is, as Dhamma. This is the way to understand the meaning of no self, no one. The point of listening to the teachings is to develop understanding of whatever it is. The very, very strong akusala or kusala, it's not me at all.
So that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, Dhamma patipata would mean direct understanding of whatever appears.
Mm-hmm.
In accordance with.
But where's the appears? It's not. There's nothing in that phrase about appears, though, is it? It's
No.
exactly.
It's the Dhamma now.
Yes.
How do you know that it's Dhamma?
It's appearing.
Okay. It's appearing.
See, it has to appear.
Yes.
And no understanding of that which appears in samsara before hearing the teachings of the Buddha, right?
Right.
Because it's I all the time by the asava, the 4 asava. After seeing has fallen away, it's followed by sampatichana, santirana, and votapana. How fast? And then asava is there. 4 kinds of asava. The kamasava. Kama is the 5 sense object.
Is asava doesn't appear though, does it? It's anusaya appears, but not asava.
Anusaya does not appear at all.
Anusaya doesn't
Yeah.
appear. I get
So,
confused.
so
with those two. Okay.
while one is fast asleep, nothing appears. Even the anusaya is there.
Yeah, okay.
But as soon as after seeing has fallen away, the 3 moments citta has fallen away, asava is there. They are kamasava, attachment to the sense objects, and pavasava, to being, and tittasava, I, and avijjasava, ignorance. Unknown all the time. At this very moment of seeing, 3 more chittas, and then it's there. After seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, the 5 senses, though. That's why we keep on thinking that I see, I hear all the time, because of the ditthasava. Ditthasava with avijjasava, and sometimes with kamasava.
And so many processes too, not just one process after the seeing, so many processes with asava.
Yeah, that's why it can't be eradicated by ignorance, or just I who try so much to eradicate it. It's impossible. Understanding how much kilesa is accumulated after seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching.
Just a comment sort of obliquely related to this. It seems to me, after all these years of learning about Dhamma, that thinking is obvious to me that it's not me thinking. It seems like the thinking just goes on. It is kind of rough experiential level, but seeing seems not quite so obvious that it's not self. I always think that it's not self, but it's not quite as obvious as the thinking process is just going on.
That's why the teachings of the Buddha help one to understand the truth. When it's not clear yet, when it's only hearing, it's not the patipatti, it's only pariyatti, it cannot understand what appears now until satipatthana arises by conditions. So one knows that we do not try to have it.
Right.
But
it's
there must be
counterproductive because that try in itself is akusa itself. It's asava, ditthasava.
So that's why panya is keener, just a little bit at a time.
And yet in the Satipatthana Sutta, reading it, it looks like the Buddha is encouraging people try to be aware. He's telling the monks, be aware all the time. That's
but
how it looks.
there's no people.
Right.
See, we have to understand what he meant.
Yes.
He doesn't encourage anyone to do anything, but to understand. That's why each word is to understand, for understanding only.
So in other words, he was not encouraging doing, he was just encouraging
understanding.
Good understanding.
And any moment there can be understanding.
Yeah, that's the only reality which can eliminate ignorance and the clinging to the self.
I think also the Dhamma is so subtle that it's a simple, in a way, the first law of logic is correlation does not mean causation. So just because it seems like that, well, it may do, but it certainly may well not also. So almost we have to be very careful when we read the Dhamma and how we read it. That's what I've learnt through Ajarn over the years, that things may seem like that, but very often they are not. And that's what we have to be, I feel, very vigilant about. And that's why I said with that one Dhamma no Dhamma patipatti, it's just, as Ajarn indicated, it's following Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. And we don't need to put other words in there because the Dhamma is strong enough in itself and of itself to support the right understanding.
When there is lopa, people think that it's not good, so they try many
But
ways
that's another type of lopa.
that it's wrong, not the right way. Because it's that person, not the Dhamma, not the understanding, which performs its function. To detach. Each word of the Buddha conditions detachment. When it's attachment, one knows that it's wrong.
And I think that the idea of self is so very, very, very strong. I must do something. And it seems like that. And it's not easy to be truly respectful to the Dhamma when we don't have enough understanding. It's difficult because the idea of I is so potent. It's there all the time. And we are often, it's because of habit, because of habit, it maintains that perspective. And when I read, as I often do on the posts these days, I see it. It's so prevalent. There must be. The Buddha's saying this, the Buddha's saying that. And it can seem like that, but I don't believe it is now. I was of that belief at one time, but I don't believe that now.
Well, tell us your story a little bit,
No,
Sandra, from back in the day until you got to this stage.
I know, I can only remember, and I think it's always worthwhile to remember Ajarn's very wise words when she said to me, when I was living many years ago in Chonburi and Chiang Mai and other places, I think Rayong, and I said to Ajarn, I told her about my belief. I said, they told me to do this and they told me to do that. And Ajarn just said to me, when I told my story, anybody can say anything. So I was annoyed when I heard that statement. I did not like it. But I thought, that's true. That's true. So I realised that I had to re-evaluate and reconsider, and I give Ajarn incredible gratitude for allowing me to think for myself. You know, Ajarn helped me to do that. Before that, I was a person who was a follower. I followed what other people said. I wasn't a person who questioned. I wasn't a person who considered carefully. And I think this is very prevalent in the media today. People just believe. And I think it is so dangerous and so destructive when you just follow. And that's what I was doing. So Ajarn asked that very simple question. Or she said, it wasn't even a question, it was, anybody can say anything. So it's a very good, it was a very salient reminder, I think, oh, well, that's true. So.
And you see that before that, it's this moment, no understanding of seeing.
Yes.
So what can one do unless listening and consider carefully that even the characteristic which arises and experiences an object is not known yet. So it's just the word of all the Cetasikas.
Jaku Vijnana. Mm-hmm. Well, Ajahn, why you put a lot of emphasis on understanding seeing, Jaku Vijnana? Why not understanding thinking rather than or something?
Because they see right now.
Right, so it's so important, obviously. Yeah,
and it's not easy to understand.
Very different, yeah.
That's why we know. Why do we listen to the teachings? Just to understand that which appears, and there is no understanding of that thing.
And I think what Ajarn really helped me with is understanding the difference between concept and reality. Yeah. That was one thing I had no idea about. Every meditation centre I went to, they never spoke about that. They never spoke about that. So that was, those two, that pointer, oh, wow, there is such a thing as concepts even. Yes, I knew about concepts, I must have. But that there was something that was real, apart from concepts, in the Buddha's teachings, that was a revelation to me. I did not know, I had not heard about that.
Well, that's straight from the Abhidhamma, though, right?
Yes, true. But in a sense, also, we can see how it fits within the Sutta Pitaka also, and the Vinaya Pitaka also. Perhaps not, but perhaps not so directly. Perhaps not so directly, but it's more explicit, because in the Abhidhamma, it is just about nama and rupa, ultimately, and that's what is alluded to time and time again by way of, actually in Vinaya Pitaka, because the Buddha talked about this often with monks who are unsure, and also obviously in the Sutta Pitaka also, it is there, Sutta Pitaka, excuse me. And that's why, of course, that we need And I'd never heard really of Abhidhamma Pitaka before I came to Thailand, but it's only something through Ajarn and Nina, of course, Kunina, have helped me tremendously in that respect.
Well, related to this, and since Sundara brought up the Vinaya, sometimes when I'm sure the monks must think, I must do this, I must do that, so they can follow the rules. You could do the Vinaya, you could follow the Vinaya with a lot of self, thinking I'm strict on this point, strict on that point, and be a very good, outwardly, a very good monk in that sense, right?
So, why one want to be a monk? What for? Why not lay people?
Well, the Buddha it was the highest.
It's just follow the word if it's like that. But actually it's not like that. It has to be one's own understanding after hearing the teachings enough to understand one's own latent tendency or accumulation. Whether can one go out of of lay people's life?
And also,
can one follow that? Just to leave everything in life like lay people anymore?
Well, someone could outwardly do
that,
but still have a sense of self.
Yeah. What is the motive? What is his intention to be a monk? When you say someone, what does he want?
Maybe he wants to be a good person, wants to be a representative of the Dhamma or something. I mean, I'm not saying it's the right way, but
that no need to be a monk if it's only that. Yeah. Even a Sotapanna can be led.
Sure.
So, why do people want to be a monk? To be monks? Just wanting or what?
Okay. Tell me.
If it's from wanting only, it's useless. By desire.
And I think, like we were talking about Marga Puja, when the monks the Buddha spoke to were all arahata, and he gave them the awada patimokkha, which is like, awada means to proclaim or to speak out about what the training was. And they were all arahatas, they were all ehibhikkhus. I mean, literally means they were the bhikkhus who, when the Buddha says ehibhikku, they appear with all their requisites, their hair shaved, the bowls, and all those things, all the 8 requisites. They appear as bhikkhus. At that time, they did not need to follow rules. They were pure in that sense. So the Buddha talked about the avoidance of evil and the doing of good and purifying the mind. That was the patimokkha at that time. It was very simple. But things, as Ajarn is saying, have changed over the years. And even hardly had the Buddha died when there was a monk saying, we're well rid of the Samana Gautama. Let's do what we like. So people like Mahakassapa realised that we have to preserve the teachings so that we don't have that kind of attitude becoming common, and that's very dangerous because that will destroy the Dhamma. So that's why we had the different Sanghayanas at different periods throughout history.
Well, talking about preserving it, maybe some of the monks, even though they realise they're not going to become arahat or even sotapanna, but they want to help preserve the Dhamma by becoming a bhikkhu in the sense of...
No.
They might have that idea.
No. If one would like to preserve the...
Just have satipatthana.
One has to understand the teachings. Only. Not the temple, not the number of the monks, but the understanding, the teachings correctly, and follow it.
But if they're at least preserving the letter, even if they're not understanding the deep meaning, it's better than nothing, I think.
I think that just one word, with fully understanding, it can lead to nibbana and being arahata. Just one word. Dhamma.
What?
Dhamma.
Well,
What is it?
Who's going?
Yeah, for anyone, Dhamma, understand. Just very little in the beginning, and then keep on understanding more and more and more. All are Dhammas.
Yes.
Yeah. But if they don't understand that Dhamma is now, how can they keep the teachings of the Buddha?
Yeah.
Because for observing precepts, anyone can do,
Yes.
but not with understanding of the purpose of why and how.
Yes.
So one has to be so very truthful.
I'm wondering, how does a monk preserve the teachings that a layperson cannot?
Well, if we go back say 1,000 years, I mean, there wasn't many written books. There wasn't. They were carrying on the teachings by reciting and so on.
With understanding.
In those days, you think, yeah.
Yes, no
Yeah.
matter
Okay.
when. Without understanding the teachings of the words of Buddha, it's meaningless.
Sort of getting back to this idea that because self is so strong, it's I can't really express my gratitude to Ajarn. I would have just, I'm interested in the Dhamma, I was interested in Buddhism, but I did not have the understanding I did not have the understanding. I needed a good teacher, and I didn't realize how good Ajarn was. Little by little, that's revealed. But if I was born 1,000 years ago or whenever, and I didn't meet a wise person, it wouldn't make any difference. I would still have this I might think I'm doing good, as many people do today, think they're doing good, but we know that that takes a lot of wisdom to know that, what is truly good. That's not easy to know. That's a moment by moment reality that can be very deceptive, and only little by little can it be learnt what is kusala and what is akusala. In the beginning it'll be all mixed up and there'll be a lot of confusion, but I think it's so easy to go wrong because of the misunderstanding that we have accumulated over millions and millions of lifetimes. That's understandable. Help, I think. I know I've got accumulations of ditti, or of all sorts of horrible things, no doubt, much more than I can ever begin to imagine, and I don't want to know about. But we've done all sorts of things, I'm sure, because of ignorance, and that is a great tragedy.
So to that point, how can one knows that one meet a good teacher?
Okay, what that person say. What does
That
he?
person has to say the truth.
How do you know that it's true or the truth?
Because it's real.
Why and how do you know that it's real?
Because it's there. You can see it. You can.
It's now, this moment. See, if there is no understanding of this moment right now, how can there be higher and more understanding? Impossible.
Yes.
No matter how much we read and talk about, no understanding of this actual moment.
So, Chan, what have you to say about people who hear this and still disagree?
Because of their own thinking.
But they believe they follow some technique, meditation
Yes.
technique, and they think that is the way.
Yes, so please have a talk with them and understand what is true and not true.
And
For example-
it ends up they walk away, but still they believe that they're right and you're wrong.
Okay, it doesn't matter because the truth is the truth.
So it's only Panya that knows.
Right,
And if there's no Panya, there's no way of knowing. Anyway.
right. Mhm.
I have a second question. When one knows that one meets the good teacher, is it possible that it's because of that person's accumulation? That when he hear the teaching, the words from that teacher, and he just click.
Without satya, one cannot understand the teachings of the Buddha. Satya. เข้าใจไหมคะ
So much.
Truth.
The truth, yeah.
Okay.
But people confuse between the truth and not truth all
Yes,
the time.
of course.
Yeah.
So,
Dhamma.
So what is true?
You like you want to be true to yourself, but what you have believed all your life, over many lives, have been wrong.
So what is true now?
The Dhamma.
What do you mean by Dhamma?
The things that is going on around you.
So what is it? Just one at a time? What is real now?
Little moment at a time.
Yes, but what is that moment? See, it's this understanding. What is true, what is real now? Now, what is truth? What is real?
My feeling or what I see,
Please,
what arises, and
what? I would like to know what. What? What do you mean by what?
I see everyone.
Okay, seeing is real. Why do you say that it's real?
Because I'm facing it. Right?
Because it is now, it sees now. Right? So what is its nature? The seeing, the nature of it. When it's real, it has its own characteristic, which is real, that you can say that it's real. So seeing is real now. Do you know what seeing is?
You just said it's characteristic of seeing.
So you mean that seeing
The
cannot be,
color,
seeing cannot be you, seeing cannot be yours. Seeing just arises to see, that's all. No you, no one, no thing. It's gone.
that's
You
right.
know that?
Yes,
This present seeing is not the previous one.
right.
Okay. Actually, there's no one at all. No one born, no one die.
Yes.
Yeah. Only different realities conditioned to arise and fall away all the time. And that's the meaning of the truth or the reality. No self, no one. In Pali, it is anatta. Anatta.
Ajarn, we can appreciate how great the wisdom of the people during the Buddha's time was, how the accumulations and different from us. We keep hearing about no one in seeing, no one in hearing, no one in this again and again and again, and be reminded about what is happening to all six doorways again and again, and still we're not going anywhere further. Whereas those people, when they heard just one doorway, they understood all doorways. It's like that
How come?
because of accumulated wisdom.
From moment to moment of understanding. Years and years ago.
They understood seeing means they understood hearing, they understood everything.
And just like getting back to one of your questions there, how do you know? I don't think you know straight away. I think it's a very gradual thing. Dhamma is very gradual, and there are some analogies to this in the teachings in the Tripitaka. So the wise person, in this case Ajarn, she asks questions. She's always very good, I notice, when she asks very good questions about the nature of what appears now, for example. It's a good reminder. That's not telling you to think their way. She's not saying, believe this. She's asking a question, and that's what the wise person always does. That's one of the things. Sorry, you can ask a question.
That's how I know.
Yes.
because the first time I heard her asking, is what is seeing, then I know right away she is the one. I haven't been to any institution or anything, but I'm interested in Dhamma. And then I never gone to listen to anyone or any monks or going to anywhere. But when the first time, like last October, I heard her on the YouTube clip that one of the Vityakon sent me, and then she said, "Hen mi mai?" That's it.
So it's not like it takes time. There's just different degrees and it develops.
Yeah.
So even the first moment of understanding is that level of confidence and knowing that this is the truth.
When you say that seeing is not me, from hearing, from thinking, or from direct experiencing, the moment when it's there.
Sorry, what's the question?
Okay, when you say that seeing is not me, how come to know that? That seeing is not me.
Because it's just conditioned that I got infected by the surroundings, that it comes and goes, and it's just what I'm thinking that this is what. So it's just something that I have accumulated to recognize as, in different names, but then it just disappeared and a moment after it's already gone.
And how to know that there is no I?
I don't know.
So it's your thinking. Your thinking is still my thinking.
So how to know, Ajahn?
Yes,
It's not I.
yeah.
Yes.
It's not just by hearing, but it has to be the understanding of, since it's true, it can be directly experienced as it is. The moment when it arises and falls away, by then more confidence on the understanding of no self, no one at all. But if there is no hearing about it at all, there is nothing to condition such even thinking.
But there's hearing and there's also considering Picharanar as well. That's also necessary, right?
So much.
Yeah. And then there may be direct awareness.
And to know that what is the moment of understanding, not just only hearing. We heard a lot about the word sati, right? It's wholesome. And what do you translate that word? Sati.
Awareness.
Okay.
Mindfulness.
Okay. Is it very ordinary to be mindful, to be aware?
Probably not.
Because it's different from what we think. So we know that even right now, whenever there's right understanding, there must be sati at level of it's there, with panya, with attention to what is heard, to condition understanding. And that understanding is not the direct understanding at moment when it arises. And how come to understand, seeing right now as it is, as what we have heard a lot from life to life, each word of the teachings of the Buddha, draw it or brings it, leads it to this moment, and that is moment when sati, direct sati, arises.
Ajahn, there's people who study the Abhidhamma a lot, and they are serious Abhidhamma students. Say that, but are they still developing? If someone just studies the Abhidhamma and they know there's no self by theory, so will they gradually develop more and more understanding in general? Or?
The more there is the understanding of Dhamma, Abhidhamma, the
Yeah.
more it will lead to detachment.
Right.
Nothing can be done. See, there is the less and less attachment to the self.
Trying to do something
Try to do something.
other than...
Otherwise, it's there all the time.
Yeah,
but
I
from more and more understanding, it becomes just gradually.
Well, it must be because the Abhidhamma has one sort of flavour. It's all about anatta. So if anyone keeps studying the Abhidhamma...
What for? The purpose?
Well, I mean, to try to understand.
I do. Some people do not want to understand.
Maybe, yeah.
Just for themselves.
What? How?
To be keen, to be smart, to be good, to have...
Show that they're clever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And try to find out the details for what? Not to understand that it's not self, but for the self to know it.
That's possible. Yeah.
So
No,
we
I
have...
met one person.
That's why we have to understand our own purpose of understanding the words of the teachings.
But if someone's sincere, and I
Yes.
think it must be, and they keep studying the Abhidhamma and seeing the anattanas, because it's very obvious the Abhidhamma is all about anatta, and the commentaries,
Yeah,
there must be the development of
yeah,
understanding.
with no expectation.
Right.
But Robert, I mean, the self will take anything, for self, even the knowledge of Abhidhamma.
Sure.
So if it's there, if that's the motivation, then that's not going to lead anywhere good.
And I think it's so easy to fool yourself at times that, and like Ajarn's pointed out, because the idea of self sometimes can be very strong sometimes, but it can be so subtle too, and you really can believe that you are doing this for a good reason, but it's not really. And a lot of people, you can see when that person speaks sometimes, there are lots of sometimes what I call giveaways that will tell you that person really has not understood. They may think they have, but I think sometimes it's quite obvious that they haven't. And there's nothing much you can do sometimes. You can just accept that, that's what they believe, and you should never, I don't believe we should ever force people. Sometimes you can't, and we know from the Buddha's time also that sometimes he was just quiet. He did not answer certain people. He once said to Ananda, to the Buddha, that man was asking you a question, why didn't you answer him? And he said, whatever I had said, he would have taken it the wrong way, and that would have been very dangerous for him. The Buddha was so protective because of his incredible wisdom and the heft and the power of that wisdom, of what a Samma Sambuddha was. He realized that he had a power in a way, and that if that was not understood, that could be so easily abused.
Well, here's an example, Ajarn, that I meant to ask you also. There was a layman came to listen to the Buddha, and he understood to a certain extent. And then he said, well, I'm busy, I've got many things to do. And he walks away, and the Buddha said to the monks, if that man had stayed another and listened a little bit longer, he would have become a Sotapanna. And the monks said, oh yeah. And you kind of think, well, why didn't the Buddha say, can't you stay another hour and listen to me? But the Buddha knew conditions. It's just amazing, really.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, because you see that even Buddha cannot control anything. He knew the best that not to be able to control anything.
And we were talking today about Maggia on the post, and Maggia, who was the Buddha's attendant at one time, he wanted to stay and meditate. He saw a beautiful place and he wanted to sit there and meditate, or do some meditate. Oh, I see. I'm sorry, didn't realise that.
You see that if Buddha said that do not go, it conditioned
something else.
I who want.
Yes.
Okay.
I guess that's what I thought too,
go back to the earlier topic. I wasn't completely clear, and when you were asking about seeing, hearing, it seems like from what I have listened to you in the book, it seems easier. But when it comes to thinking, it's like, how can I know that this citta and things that I'm thinking is not mine? Because every thought that is going through my head is my citta. Right?
Yeah. Only understanding intellectually cannot eliminate the idea of self at all. Because the self now, from after hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, it's there. See? Adding more and more and more and more. Each moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So the panya is so very weak. It needs more to develop, not only hearing. When there is panya, it sees the danger of akusala, but not enough to be sotapanna yet. So it knows that if it's not kusala, there must be akusala. That's why the parami is very important. Without parami, and that person has to be so very careful in all situations, even just a little bit, to condition akusala. And if panya is enough, it can condition kusala instead. Never lazy to do good deeds. See, good speech and all.
If I take that on board, Ajahn, I know immediately there'll be self trying to get this parami. So
And that is
I'm
panya.
almost afraid of the
And-
parami in that sense, because I'll try to have that kusala in all situations. It's
No, panya knows what is the condition for such moment. And just a moment of kusala, it can prevent a moment of akusala to increase. See, that's why the wise person does not let go any moment to do kusala at all, even just a little bit. See,
that sounds like
otherwise the asava is there. No, conditioned by panya. Panya knows.
It's
Not
for,
self.
for a person who has developed panya, right? For us, it would be like trying. It would be trying. But for people who have already developed a lot of panya, just this a hint can condition more panya.
Yeah, Ajarn, I said I would ask a question for Kunina. So I'm going to just look at the question, if I may. It's about nimitta again, and it's not going there. Why is that? These conditions. I think I'll have to. Sorry, 6. Sometimes it does this. Please, somebody else ask a question, and I'll come back to this if they like. Oh no, it's come now. Okay, right. This is Huang To. I believe he's a Vietnamese gentleman, and he says to Nina, "Dear Nina and friends, I do not think I misunderstood Ajarn saying at the last foundation talk that a photocopy is a concept. Perhaps there is an occasion to bring it up." So the photo, and then I think it's Kunina who says here, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure it's Kunina, says the photocopy isn't a concept, or it's being talked about the nimitta here, Ajarn.
So why do we say photocopy?
Well, we
it's
refer.
exact nimitta of the reality.
Yes.
And that's why it's not counted as a concept, if I understand correctly.
No, it is
There's
a
a
concept,
concept.
because it is not the reality,
Yeah.
but a photocopy. Therefore,
But
concept.
it's kind of a special type of concept. It's not like the normal
Yeah,
way we
it's-
think
it's a-
about
yeah.
concepts, right?
But
Right.
it's not the real one.
Okay.
But it's not the real one.
But even in Vipassana, Jnana, there's still these
Concept.
nimitta concept.
Nimitta.
Nimitta, yes.
Yes.
Even though we say it's reality, but it's
right
actually...
now, exactly. See,
Yeah.
no one can pinpoint or
Yes.
just have one moment of reality. For example, seeing, who can understand that this is numerous seeing? before there can be this room and things around. That's why, according to the Vitijita, it has to be concept only, which can be experienced.
So even in Vipassana Jnana,
it is nimitta.
Nimitta of reality.
Of reality,
yeah.
Yes.
Nimitta.
But it is reality as well, because of the reality arising and falling away. Without that, there is no nimitta. So it's moment of reality and nimitta, reality and nimitta.
Yes.
Not just one reality, many realities and nimitta right now.
But like now, what we take for a visible object is just an
Nimitta.
idea, it's just thinking. So
Nimitta.
this is not the nimitta of reality, but just the thinking about.
Even the moment of vipassana jnana, it appears as nimitta all the way.
When it's pariyati understanding, it's not nimitta of reality, it's concept.
I hope that's a little bit clearer, Nina. If not, we can talk about it another time also. And I noticed also there is a question here about pariccheda rupa, and I'd like to just have a look at that also.
About the space between kalapas, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Well, perhaps while I'm looking for Ajarn's question, it's not an easy concept, I know, to understand, because we know that pariccheda rupa is one of the rupas that arises all the time with any particular group of rupas. There must always be pariccheda rupa.
What's pariccheda?
Akasa rupa.
Oh.
It's got different names. It's got two names, so it's sometimes called space rupa, if you like.
That which in between kalapas is pariccheda rupa.
Yeah, literally, pariccheda literally means it's divided.
That's where it comes from, I see.
Yeah. So, could you speak a little bit about that, Ajarn? Because there seems to be some misunderstanding about. When I read on the on some of the posts, there was one particular person that wanted to know more about that. It seems to me I won't say any more. What can you speak to pariccheda rupa a little bit, Ajarn, to help the people who may be listening?
How many kalapas are there?
How many kalapas? Well, there's 8.
Trillions. Well, kalapas group in a body or in a
Whatever, wherever.
Uncountable.
Say, how do you know? Without pariccheda rupa or akas rupa. But you can
There
say.
must be space between, yes. There must be, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful, Ajarn. Yeah. So as Kunsukin said, there are millions and millions of groups of rupas, but it's because of pariccheda rupa that we're able to distinguish one from the other. Though that's the benchmark there. So what else can we say about pariccheda rupa, Ajarn?
It's conditioned by, according to the rupa, whether
Yes.
that rupa is conditioned by kamma or uttu or hara or citta.
So, Ajarn, would it be correct to say that pariccheda rupas also have the tilakkhana?
It doesn't have the characteristic of a reality like
But
hardness.
But depending, because there is the hardness rise and fall, so we can also say
all of them
also rise and
Yeah.
fall also.
I know that
together.
At the same instant.
I also know when they arise, when pariccheda rupa arises, there must be the 4 lakkhana rupas arising with that. Also, the rupa of upacchaya, santati, upacchaya, which means arising, santati, continuation, jarata, which is decay, and anicca. So those are called sukkuma rupas or asabhava rupas. They must be there at that moment of rupa arising, there must be the moment of beginning and so on until they decay.
Delirious thinking?
Sorry?
Delirious
Delirious thinking. And further, delirious thinking, Ajarn, so the other meaning of the other kind of space does not rise and fall away.
It doesn't matter at all, as long as there is no understanding directly of that which is no self.
Right. But I'm trying to see the difference between the two kinds of
Yes,
space.
I takes it away.
I'm just trying to go, if I can go back, Ajarn, when you said delirious thinking, what were you talking about there?
Trying
Just-
to pinpoint.
Yeah, is that known now?
Is there not no now?
Is it known now? The
Yes.
akasa and the paricheta rupa, or
Yes.
whatever it's talked about?
Yes, it must be now.
What can be known now?
Well, that cannot be known.
That cannot be known.
No,
So we
no,
talk
no.
about that which cannot be known.
That's right, okay. Right. I see what you're saying. Now it's clear.
Anyway, this parichita rupa is it's a secondary characteristic, so it's not known in the way that rupa yatana is known in other things.
And the usefulness of this is to let go the idea of self, or I can do. Whatever we bring to that point is useful.
So
Can
we
you say more, Ajarn? The usefulness of this is to let go the idea of self. Can you say more?
Yes.
How the teaching on Parisheda Rupa
To
helps to
understand
understand.
better and better of Abhidhamma condition the detachment
Okay.
from the idea of I, or I would like to try, or I would like to know. Lopa is there. See, it's not known. It keeps on, leads one away to more and more thought about.
So what you're saying is that even though some of these things are not experienced directly, because it's true, it can be understood, and therefore also understanding that it's all anatta.
Because you see, that if we would like to understand this and that more and more, it's I.
Yes. I was asking on behalf of somebody, if I may, Ajarn, it would seem to me unlikely, even for an ordinary sotapanna, to understand paricheta rupa. That would be, to me, sound very unlikely.
I don't know. I think I heard Ajarn say once that at one of the vipassana jnana stages, the space between kalapas can be known directly.
Sammasnayana.
It can be known.
Because when rupa appears, not just one kalapa.
Yeah, rupa. There's not only the understanding understands a group of many many kalapas.
More than one.
More than one. More than one. Yeah.
So you'd understand.
Yeah.
For rupa, it needs the akasa in between.
Yeah.
But for the other, like Vedana and so on, not just only one. So when it keeps on there, as it is, that such kind of feeling, not only one moment. And at that moment, there's no I.
Is that different from rupa? You mean? Or
Nama is different from
no,
rupa.
I mean the understanding. You said something about the Vedanas different from the rupa. The understanding.
When Panya understands Vedana as it is, it has the characteristic of such Vedana, no matter it is dukkha or sukha or whatever, and it does not appear as only one Vedana, but many, many in succession,
So
as it is.
The understanding sees that succession.
Before there can be the attention to that which arises and falls away. It has to be that which hasn't happened before, that which isn't experienced before. See? Stage by stage. That's why the first one is nama, paricheta, jnana. Nama, rupa, paricheta, jnana.
So I would have thought then, at any stage of vipassana, there's the distinction between the sense door and mind door process.
Certainly.
That's what's happening.
Because now the mind door does not appear at all, while there are mind door more than sense door.
Yes.
See? So when mind door does not appear yet, it's not vipassana jnana. because that the object there is not as clear as when it appears as it is. That's why there's the word appear well to Satipatthana and not as Vipassana Jnana yet, but it begins to appear just a little bit better than usual, because now many moments of experiencing hardness arising and passing away all the time unknown, like seeing unknown, but when it's known, even just a little bit, appears well, better than before with sati. So one knows the different moment between moment with sati and moment without sati, and no doubt about why it is satipatthana, not as usual sati, which is not satipatthana. Everything becomes just a little bit clearer and clearer and clearer, very gradually. And without the understanding intellectually now, what can be conditioned for such moments? See?
So that is the condition.
That's his condition. No, with no expectation. This is more difficult. Just leave it. No one can do anything, but develop understanding more and more. No expectation to condition sati at a particular time or object.
Ajarn, so is this why jnana is used only with vipassana jnana,
Right.
not before that?
Sometimes in the book, kusala, titti, panya, jnana sampayut, kusala with jnana sampayut.
But here in the meaning, when you just talking about why...
That's why we have vipassana jnana.
And vipassana jnana is not just satipatthana. That's
Impossible.
when real knowledge starts. When you
It's
know the
just the
difference
beginning
between...
of understanding the reality, just very little, because it does not arise more often, right? Or when it arises not long enough. So it is like a test whether there is attachment to having more, please, or do anything to have it more, see? Or the test all the time of panya, to be known as correctly whether it's that level or not. When it's not that level, it's not that level.
So we can see
And
by
it needs more
comparison...
conditions. Pardon?
We can see by comparison that intellectual understanding is nothing.
When satipatthana does not arise yet, how can one know its characteristic? That is different from intellectual sati.
Because the problem with everyone is that we attach a lot of importance to just thinking and intellectual knowledge. Yet that's not real knowledge. Even if it is pariyati, it's still a long way from patipati, and that's a long way from vipassana jnana. And that's where real knowledge is, vipassana jnana.
When panya is not enough, it seems like it's vipassana, but it's not. One mistakes it. So panya can understand everything as it is. When it's not, panya knows that it's not yet. And one cannot do anything at all because the Dhamma, develop more understanding of Dhamma, no self who can try or do anything. So it's quite a long, long way, the way of detachment from ignorance. For example, does anyone want to have less attachment? This is like a test.
Yeah, that's the wrong way because it's already attachment.
Yeah, but who can help when it's there? By conditions, by accumulation, from moment to moment, in a day, in an hour, in a minute, in a second, it's there.
I think sometimes, or some people, or us too, we can see the obvious attachment, like attachment to family and friends and pleasant feeling, but we think the little attachment to want to have sati seems not so bad in comparison.
And
but it's still useless, right?
What's the most dangerous?
The subtle one? The wrong view.
The idea of self.
Yeah.
No matter how great the lopa is or dosa is, panya is stronger when it's there, to know that it's just not me. So the point is to develop the understanding reality as not self. This is the weapon for the warrior to fight with lopa and akusala, ignorance. Otherwise, one thinks that one can do good, one can be better and more, but it's still I. That cannot
It's a wrong view.
eradicate the akusala.
And the I thinks it's holding the weapon, but there's no weapon.
Yeah.
Actually, it's holding ignorance.
So that's why one begins to understand what's meant by to have Buddha as refuge, Dhamma and Sangha only in samsara, no matter what life. It's quite a long way. The end of the cave.
What?
The end of the cave of ignorance. Dark.
The tunnel or the cave?
Well, we're all very, very grateful, Ajarn, for holding the lamp up in that cave that you have given us, because I know I still feel very lost at times, and I appreciate, and I'm sure I speak for many people, the patience and the helpfulness that you have.
Yes, there can be such moment, but the accumulation of panya can condition moment of understanding. It takes away the discouragement.
And how about the parami again? You mentioned parami before. Can we circle back on that?
Khanti parami, Satya parami, Adhidana parami.
It seems, Ajarn, so not easy, even difficult to understand when we talk about adhitthana, because we talk about adhitthana, which is often translation as determining or being determined or being fixed. It sounds so strong with the idea of a self.
But with the understanding that it's not self, see? Whatever appears is conditioned by the previous accumulation from life to life to be known as not self. No selection, no expectation. What will arise next moment?
So everything we read in the suttas, in the Vinaya Abhidhamma, it's with the understanding that it's about Dhamma, not self. So determination must be a Dhamma.
Yeah, and it's panya which knows.
How best to help people understand that, Ajarn? I often read on the Dhamma study group list people talking about this subject and related subjects, and I read Jonathan, he's very patient, as Sarah is. They're always helping people to understand. But
And what about yourself?
I sometimes.
Help the others, see? But what about yourself?
I see it's so important always to remember to apply the Dhamma to your own development. Is that what you're saying, Ajarn?
Because you see that in order to understand that there's no self,
Yes.
in order to tell the other that there's no self, it has to be the understanding of this.
So what you seem to be implying there, Ajarn, is that we can think we're helping, but we can do it with ignorance.
Or attachment, or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I'm imagining when I think about what you said then, Ajarn, that probably we wouldn't help anybody if we, because of the amount of ignorance that we have, it would be unlikely that
But you see that we can help as much as we know.
can. Yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
Only
Yeah.
that far.
yeah. But as you are saying, you stress also to be
Don't forget,
careful.
because it can be with attachment.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
Just for metta, being friendly, good friend, the best gift is nothing rather than understanding, panya.
And the dividing line, I think, as Kun Sukin has alluded to, between metta, when it's truly metta, and when it's not, is sometimes they're very close.
So panya knows, only panya.
But first has to be the understanding that it's not self.
To the end, from the beginning to the end.
It's so dangerous without this understanding to take everything for self, even metta. And then there's
Not just in this life, long, long time ago, uncountable life.
So we've accumulated a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of ignorance, a lot of darkness, a little tiny bit of correct understanding, but it's very, very shallow. It's very
Correct.
tiny. However, we can develop little by little.
Knowing that there's no self.
so not we can develop, but understanding can grow.
Yes.
Forget oneself. Do the best.
Very difficult to judge.
Until it becomes one's accumulation
Yes.
or tendency.
But also, Ajarn, sometimes it's not just wisdom. Other accumulations, like someone has a lot of kindness, so there's no thinking about self, but just thinking about others, but no wisdom that it's just Dhamma. So forgetting about self has to be more precise. Just understand what appears is
Like those in the Arupa Brahma plane, see? No understanding of whatever appears. Much better than anyone in this world, because they are Arupa Brahma.
Arupa, the one without rupa.
Yes, so they're the ones who have developed a level of understanding that sees the danger of rupa.
Just completely off topic now, since you mentioned Arupa Brahma. There's a story I brought up before about about Bahiya. He was one of the 7 ascetics at the time of Kassapa Buddha. They were all monks under Kassapa Buddha, and they decided, right, we're going to strive to be arahants. And they went up to a mountain and they kicked off the ladders and they vowed, we're not going to leave here, we'll die here or we'll attain here. And some of them attained, and they said, right, we've attained, we'll go down and get you food now, we can fly down or whatever. And the ones who didn't attain said, wait, did we say that we would let you go down and get food, we will either attain or we will die. And Bahia was one of the monks who died at that time. And later he met the Buddha, and because of one of them became a Brahma. One of them didn't become an Arahant, one became an Anagami in the Brahma world. And he went, and Bahia was going in a wrong way and doing a wrong practice and so on. And anyway, we know the story. But whenever I look at that story, I'm thinking that looks like wrong practice to me, to just go up and obviously it wasn't though in their case, but it looked a bit extreme.
When there's no understanding of self, it is. But when there is the understanding of no one, no self.
Yeah, they had that right understanding.
Yeah. This is
the
the difference.
or something, yeah.
I mean, Ajarn, how we think, what we think, it's all different.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's accumulated habit, accumulated tendency to think like this. So even if in a lifetime where we are ready to become a enlightened Sotapanna or Sakadagami or whatever, sometimes the thinking is like this, but understanding is different.
Mm-hmm.
While thinking can think many things, but there can be understanding of the elements while thinking.
So I have heard that story about Bahia, but we can also see that he was one of those people. He obviously had right understanding at some time, and obviously I would say he had it while he was in the cave there, but he subsequently died, and then his accumulations of wrong view were so strong that he thought he was an enlightened person. He was Bahia Daruchirya. Daruchirya means he had a bark garment around him. He was wearing and everyone thought he was enlightened. And that friend from a past life in the Sudhavasa, Rupa Brahmaloka, told him he wasn't enlightened and he should go and see the Buddha. That's right. And he enlightened him by that very famous. I want to actually check the Pali of that, but essentially he simply said to them, in the seeing there's just the seen. And that's exactly right. And he, with that, hearing those words, or actually when he went to see the Buddha said to him, Bahia, this is not the right time, because I'm collecting food at another time. And again Bahia asked, please tell me about the Dhamma. And again the Buddha refused. And then they asked him a third time, and the Buddha said, all right, Bahia, since you've asked me now 3 times, I will tell you. So he knew that each time he refused, it enabled him to be more settled, even though he seemed even more agitated. But by the 3rd time, the Buddha knew that it was the right time to tell him what it was, what he needed to hear.
Here we see such big difference between the Buddha and even Sariputta. Only he can know the accumulations of the other, no one else.
He's a Samma Sambuddha. It's different.
When there is more and more understanding, we can take his word as refuge more and more.
So, talking about Vipassana Jnana again, you noted earlier that the mind door is much more prevalent, except it's hidden. The sense door seems obvious. We see the visible object seems obvious, the hardness, but not the mind door processes don't seem obvious. But in Vipassana, it's the opposite. The mind door processes begin to
as it is.
As it is, yeah. Seeing
Yeah,
as it is,
because sense door is just one.
Yes.
So many mind doors ever.
Right.
Close your eyes. It's dark, not as dark as mind door.
Mind doors. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
It's always impressed me that when you told me that the scene, the Jaku Vijnana, is just one moment, and then which is when there's light or colour. The rest of the time it's dark. But it seems the opposite. It seems like there's always colour when the eyes are open, but it's...
Otherwise there wouldn't be wrong understanding or titi, that everything is there, not all gone yet. But from hearing, one begins to understand it. We cling to that which is not there anymore, forever, from moment to moment. Wrong understanding as something stays. And one begins to understand ignorance. It cannot understand that as it is, as Buddha has taught. That's why the Vipassana jnana is different from other moments. When everything appears as it is. The sense process so fast and very short moment. While mind or darkness is there. All senses.
And in Vipassana that becomes clearer and clearer.
Yeah, because just one at a time. So whatever appears in life does not appear well, not as it is. One can see ignorance more and more, see.
Just if we can go back briefly, Ajarn, to Samasana Jnana then, because I understand the word Samasana means like a clump or a kind of a bundle. Does it mean that, and at that moment, there is an understanding, a clearer understanding that of the different types of rupas that are appearing then?
As they are.
As they are. And there would be a better understanding-ish, because I thought...
No one there.
No one there.
Mm-hmm.
But there will
no
be...
I, because the world is lost.
The world is lost at that moment. There was
Only
no
realities are there.
There are only realities there.
As they are.
What do you mean the world is lost? Do you mean the world of beings and things?
Concepts.
What
Concepts.
are there now
Mm-hmm.
is then, is not there at all. Nothing can appear together except that which is aramana and that which experience. No one, no leg, no eye, no ear, no body, no place.
So no concepts at Vipassana jnana.
But nimitta is there as object. As now, just like now,
Yeah.
what does not appear cannot appear even to the Vipassana jnana.
What does appear cannot appear.
Now, what appears can appear as it is one by one. But that which does not appear now cannot appear,
Well,
not appear. Disappear but not well. So we live in darkness, blindness.
Often we say we live in a dream.
All the time?
mostly.
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 Try to open the eyes.
Little by little.
So without hearing the teachings, who can understand what appears now as it is.
I know, I'm aware of that, Ajarn, at least at that level. Sometimes I talk to people when I'm staying where I am, and they're foreigners who are coming from different countries, and I feel very, very fortunate I met you, because I speak to them and they are truly lost. I hear that. It is kind of like I don't even talk about it, even, but I listen to them and I think, oh, yeah, I don't know where to start. So I don't.
I mean, that's one of the problems. You don't know where to start, and that's why I mentioned the Buddha just now. The Buddha knew exactly what to say, and if he chose to not to say anything, it's with understanding. But whereas for us, we don't even have that much wisdom to say the right thing, and often we don't even know what the chitta is, and we think we have metta, and we have, there's no metta. It's just the self who is trying to convince other people. So, rather than say that, oh, they are lost, and I think we can see that how lost we are.
But yeah, I think what you have reminded me of about today, Ajarn, is to help people to have, if you can, to have some kusala in their lives, at whatever level. That's always good.
To have less avijja and ignorance and akusala.
Sundra, why don't you do this today?
One last question.
Just like you visited you.
Do you think it's helpful if people, at least, Buddhists, at least they've got some understanding of samsara, that birth and death, because in the West people don't even believe in future lives or past lives. They have zero, at least Buddhists in general.
Yes, but is it not easy to know that life is short, there must be birth and death? Only that?
Yeah, but
is that enough?
it's obviously it's not enough, but at least it's right for you at a level.
They can think
yeah.
about this, but they don't know the truth. Yeah.
True.
I mean, people with a firm idea about soul can also believe in.
Yeah, I know. But at least there's a inkling of right view, better than the people who think it's. So many people believe once they die.
Well, on the other hand, some might say that, say someone from a scientific background who does not believe in future life does not also believe in a soul, and there's no soul, right? So some might say that that's also good in a way.
They must be believing in self, though, if they think.
Yeah, same. So that also is belief in self. So the danger is still that because there is a belief in self, there's no understanding.
True.
And if they know that they would die, they just want to live happily until then.
Yes.
See, more and more akusala.
Yes. Yeah, that's the danger. Anyway, we're out of time, so. Oh, okay.
เดี๋ยวนี้เราไม่มีค่ะ ไม่ต้องค่ะ
Oh, we don't do that anymore?
ค่ะ
Oh, okay.
If you like, okay.
No.
For yourself only.
No,